Welcome to the Waking Up From Work podcast, episode 13 in Queen City, Manchester, Ancient Fire Mead Cider.
Lucky episode 13.
Episode
There we go.
13
Manch Vegas.
on Tuesday, the not 13th.
The not 13th. Yeah.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, welcome guys.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
We're in your house.
Oh yeah, we're live on set.
Welcome to the podcast. So
Yeah, this is a little different. Normally when we have people here, it's a little different.
Yes, that's true.
What happens? People.
It can get very loud in here.
Okay.
So when this room is full, it is amazing how loud it can get.
I believe it.
Yeah, it's not something that we had necessarily counted on. And the first time the room was full and it was really loud, the two of us looked at each other like, we can't really scream at each other from across the bar. We have to come a little closer.
You need
to
like walkie-talkies or something.
Yeah,
You'll
something
become
like
a
that.
target
or
manager.
Smoke signals
Yep.
or something. So,
Put some little soundproofing in between all these.
Thursday and Friday nights can get a little rowdy in here sometimes. You know,
I believe it.
People have fun. We're only open till 8, but people, they come after work looking to have a good time, and the jokes get rolling, or somebody says something silly, like our friend Lynn said something about she doesn't like nuts with shells.
No, nuts
And
with shells
you can
confuse her.
riff on that for about an hour if you really want to go for it. So we have a good time.
Awesome. Yeah. So I read ahead of time on your website, and your story is very cool.
Oh,
We were
yeah.
just talking about it like just a tad when we were like warming up, but with me not butchering it, I wanted to hear like, how did this business happen? You're just talking about like 10 years ago, you would have never thought that you were sitting in a place that you could get loud in and rip on people about nutted shells on nuts. I guess.
We'll make sure Lynn listens to this so she can be like, well, that wasn't exactly what I said. Well, no, that's what's funny about it is we can make a new joke on it.
Now it's live.
Thanks for
Now it's
talking
on
to strangers over the internet about me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, she'll be really appreciative of that. So yeah, no, we tell people that we have a cool story, and because everybody has one, like I mentioned before we came on. So the journey to here was not an intentional one. We did not set out at any point up until maybe just a couple years ago to actually do this. We were having fun learning how to make fermented beverages at home.
Sure.
And that came about from a question that I was asked as I was recovering from cancer in 2003. So Margot said to me, hey, would you like to do something other than work all the time? Maybe a hobby?
Seriously.
That's a killer question. And,
a good thing to have.
Yeah. Leading me to a place where the hope was that maybe I'd appreciate the time that I had, living in the bonus round, not having passed from cancer, but being successfully treated and getting back on my feet.
Excellent.
It was a cool question. And why I blurted it out then, I still have no idea because I don't really know how much I had been thinking about it. I said, I want to learn how to brew my own beer. And there was no reason for me to have said that then because it wasn't something that I was talking about all the time.
Right.
I had one friend who had done it and it was okay, but it wasn't like I had ever sat with him while he did it or anything. I don't know what it was, but at that point, maybe it was like license to pick up a hobby and spend money. I mean, like, hey, brew my own beer. That's gotta be fun, right?
Got the pass.
And I said it and Margot said, great, go get what you need. Do that. And the only caveat, to that was just get some stuff so you can make me like girly fruit wine as well. I'm like, sweet, I can do that. I'm sure I can figure that out too. So
Fair.
That's where this all started. And like so many people that get into home brewing, it can be very addicting. You can
Absolutely.
get completely
You know all about that.
Yeah, I'm a home brewer.
enthralled by
Newbie,
all
though.
of it and spend more money every month than you did the month previously, on equipment and ingredients and
Yeah.
Yeah,
But-
right there with you.
yeah.
Sounds exactly like
That's where
everybody
this
we've talked
started.
to.
It was literally learning how to make 5-gallon batches of beer in my kitchen and getting really excited about it, making wine, making cider. We made our first mead I won't say as an accident, but not purposefully. We didn't actually know we were making mead. We'd been making fruit wine for a couple of years, and you typically need a secondary sugar source for fruit wine. Fruit in itself doesn't have enough sugar in it to make a wine strength beverage out of it. So you do something like add white sugar,
gotta
white
feed
grape
it.
juice or something. Use honey. Well, when you use enough of it, there's more sugar in it from the honey than there is the fruit. And that actually technically means it's mead. I had no idea what it was. A friend of mine actually mentioned, oh, so you made mead. What? I had no idea what he was
I
talking
didn't even
about.
know that was a thing.
Yeah, exactly. And so then we kept making different stuff. When we finally came back around and made some more mead, it was again good. And we're like, wow, this is really fun. And then we started spending more time with it. And then we actually got like on the real journey that we're on now, which is honey is a really interesting ingredient. There's a lot of different kinds of honey out there. And for most people, it's completely unexplored territory.
Yeah, me. So how do you? What's up with all the different honeys? Like, go into depth. I'm interested now.
So the honey takes on characteristics based off of what the bees are pollinating at the time that they make the honey. So it takes on, like, we use raspberry blossom honey quite a bit. So it's because those bees were pollinating raspberry blossoms for that farmer at the time that they made the honey. So similar to how a brewer would use malt. So if you're a home brewer, you can take different types of malts to get the end result that you're looking for. Well, we can do the same thing with honey. So like our honey tasting bar, we're up to, I think, 18 different types of honey. And they go from very much like a dark molasses type of flavor all the way up to an extremely light honey that has like just a very light, sweet flavor to
Very
it.
light and floral.
That based off of the vegetation that they're essentially
That's so
living on,
cool.
the climate, the type of bee, like everything is going to factor into that, even the season.
Yes.
And not even the local wildflower honey are all the same. And that's what's great about it is we can get wildflower honey from a couple different sources that are all within a few miles of here. And those honeys are different because that beekeeper's bees, are foraging on whatever flowers are near them. Maybe that beekeeper keeps bees in their backyard and has a huge flower garden. Sure. So you've got these ornamental flowers which add a lot of character to their honey, where another beekeeper may have his bees at a farm somewhere and is pollinating, farm crops, things like chili peppers and buckwheat, and that's going to completely change the character of that honey. So we don't even have to go beyond the local area. We certainly have, because we've discovered some honeys, and along the way, just like brewers get fascinated by certain ingredients. Some brewers have a particular type of malt when it comes to needing, a certain attribute that they really like. There may be 5 choices, but they may like this particular vendor's one better because that vendor has a particular way they produce it, and they just like the character it has in it. Well, we've come to find certain honeys have character that work well with other ingredients in ways that those same ingredients don't necessarily pair well with other honeys. So this is the journey that we found ourselves on. And that was, doubly addicting because now there's an ingredient that we really don't know that much about at all.
Right.
You can't really go ask a lot of people because most people don't know anything about honey at all.
Right.
So, you've got this huge
The only way is to experiment.
this huge open road in front of you just to start doing different things. And that's really what we were doing. And as we got better at it, and as we started getting recognition and competitions for it, the inevitable question came up is, well, what are you guys thinking about doing with this? Like, would you open a place commercially? And for years we said no, because we were having too much fun doing it at home. Yep. We both had jobs we liked. It was a nice kind of separation between the day job and the hobby. I get out of the day job, I race home, and guess what I'm doing at night? I'm doing the fun stuff. And that's what's fueling me to stay focused on, I got to have a job. We all have to have a job, unless we're independently wealthy. And if I got to deal with the ups and downs of corporate America, at least having a really fun hobby is a great way to kind of balance that out. 100%. So for years, we just said, no. And then almost 3 years ago,
I think it was, we had gone to a mead maker conference, and a local mead maker actually from here in New Hampshire, Sap House Meadery, a gentleman by the name of Ash. Jason was with him at this event. They were at an after hours event, and Jay always was introducing himself as an amateur mead maker, because this conference, there's professionals who go and there are amateurs who go.
Right.
And Ash said, he said to the person Jason was talking to, like, this guy's really kind of downplaying his skill. He's been doing it for years. He's been writing about it. He's been teaching classes about it. Like, the only difference between him and a professional is he's not actively selling it yet.
Right.
But we know that that's coming, is pretty much what Ash said. And he came home.
Nice
Really?
Yeah.
How do you know that?
He knew your success before you knew it.
Yeah.
But I think that's like what you guys are doing. You meet people that are passionate. He saw something that he was pretty sure he knew what it meant, and he was willing to say it because he felt like he understood what passion and what drive looks like. And he figured that for somebody who acted the way I did, I was not going to be able to say no forever.
Right. Because
and of course he was right, but I was shocked to hear it that way. I'm like, really? What do you know that I don't know?
someone in a different situation who went after that hobby like you did, right, to get into it, it could be they work their job and then they still like love that hobby, but they hit it up like once in a while and they're like, yeah, I do this. You're coming home and you're like, I need to get to this thing that I want to do. Like, you can see that fire in someone when it's like different, when it's like once in a while versus going after it.
And that's actually what happened is he came home from the conference and he's like, so this is what happened and this is what Ash said and what do you think? And I really feel like this is something I want to do. It's something we should do. And what do you think? And I'm like, yeah. I mean, people, you can only have so many because we have home brewer friends who have gone pro that own their own breweries. And even they would say to Jay, they're like, we can see it in you. It's a matter of time. You're one of us. It's a matter of time. And I said to him, I'm like, you know what? So many people that are doing this for a living have told you that you need to do this for a living, that I support that. Let's figure out what we can do to make this happen.
Right.
Just all the affirmation in the world.
Yeah.
So that was March of 2016. So we started the business planning process later that year, and started looking for locations that fall, but kind of wrapped that up before the end of 2016. It's just we weren't seeing what we thought we wanted to see. We're like, all right, let's finish working on some elements of the business plan. We'll come back to start looking for locations after the first of the year, and it was good because we made some changes to what we were thinking we were going to do. Like every single time we went and talked with people or went and looked at new locations or did a little bit more research, we just kept fine tuning what we were doing.
Right.
And that, it's almost 3 years ago and it seems like it was yesterday, but it's just blown by so fast. Once we found this place in June of 2017, just working the paperwork and everything, like you could taste it. You're like, stuff's going to really start happening. And
you're like, oh man, now this is like,
it's real.
It's a spot and it's a place.
It's concrete.
And now I'm building it. It's no longer just my business plan, which even the business plan, when you start writing that, even that, like when you're putting pen to paper and you're like, I'm going to do this thing to do this.
That's a big accomplishment.
Just that alone completely consolidates like it being like a table conversation to be like, oh crap, like we wrote a plan. Now we have the location. Now I'm in my meadery and I'm like making stuff every day and that just happened. Like that's crazy.
Yeah, so the gentleman that was here when you guys were setting up that left is actually a friend of mine. So I met him through a mead making group on Facebook, and he lived in Alaska at the time. Well, it turns out that his brother-in-law owns Burnt Timber Tavern and brewery up in Wolfboro, and he was actually coming out this way to live for a while to help them with the restaurant and everything. So he's been making some mead for them to have on tap there. So he comes down because he does some errands down this way, comes down to hang out. And so we were hanging out today, making some mead out back. And part of the conversation, was just, I looked at him at one point, I said, isn't this awesome? Isn't this great? This is what we get to do. This is our job now.
Yeah.
And I don't take that for granted at all because it wasn't that way just a few years ago. Like I remember what it was like to get up every day and be on that rhythmic schedule of having to go to the same place and file in the building with everybody else. And, oh, great staff meeting. This is going to be a great time, or, oh, corporate executives are in, everybody be on their best behavior. And it's like, oh yeah, this is just
going through your motions.
So, exciting. I remember what that was like. But I don't take for granted this is what I get to do now because you shouldn't either, because it's not what everybody gets to do. Right. Somebody's got to make beer, somebody's got to make cider, somebody's got to make mead, assuming that we all want to have some to enjoy, but being able to do it sort of at your own direction because it's your own place, that's pretty awesome.
It was 3 years, but we kind of had a long-term plan. We always knew that he wasn't going to want to do IT forever. We had talked about that.
Sure.
And he had been for a really long time, like the primary breadwinner in our family. I was one of those, like, I don't know what I want to do, people. And we talked about it, and he ended up supporting me to get my master's degree. And our plan had always been like for me to take my corporate career to the next level so that he could start ratcheting down.
Yeah.
And maybe at the time we were thinking maybe he'd still do IT consulting a little bit, part-time.
Yeah,
and
part-time
then maybe
or something just to
work at someone else's tap room for a while. Like we had different ideas. So it really, while it was 3 years, it was like a 10-year plan that was executed. And in the last 3 years, I think we finalized what that was actually going to end up being.
There was a placeholder there. Yeah. With a question mark of like, what is this thing? And we really didn't know, was it going to be beverage related? Was it going to be, I work part-time and I do, nonprofit work. Like there were all kinds of things that it could have been.
Yeah.
And it just seemed like not having kids, so not having all those bills to pay, both of us having had good jobs for a long time, being able to save some money, there was lots of possibilities. And so some people thought they were pretty sure this was going to happen, but most of those people would freely admit, yes, but they did not make you feel like they thought that for sure. People would be honest and say they always told us no. So whether we thought we knew something or not, they were always honest that they weren't really thinking about it that way. So I mean, how you get here then for a lot of people, I'm sure you hear this, is that you feel like you're kind of fumbling through different things, and there is something at the other end of it. I was never bothered with having to absolutely know what it was. And even now, we make alterations in the game plan based on what happens around us. I mean, we've decided to do some things that weren't in our original business plan already, and we've had some things that haven't really come to fruition yet because we just don't feel like the opportunity is really there. It wasn't what we might have thought it was. So, and I still feel like we're doing the same thing within the context of this, but that's because I've switched jobs. I have a new job now. Yes, I happen to be the owner of the company as well, which means I have about 12 jobs, but I have a job now, and I feel like we're doing the same thing, is just go in every day and do the best possible job of doing it. But when opportunities come along, we get to decide and not, well, go to management, find out if they're interested in it. And they're like, nah, I don't really care. We get to decide, do we want to jump on this? Is this something we want to do? So that does keep it a little bit more exciting.
I think like a lot of people starting up, like a big hesitation that gets in their way is they really just want it to be this clean linear path, just like any other type of job, right? Like if you do the thing, then you get to do the next thing, but it's not. But small business and entrepreneurial, or like starting a passion, it's not clean, and it sucks because people are so used to so many things that are that way, like, but it's not a clean thing, and it's like once you get past that, it's not clean. Like there's some things that I just have to like completely just believe in, and that's like the worst because they're like, that's not concrete. There's some things I had to flat out just believe in.
Am I convincing myself of this, or
I hope this works?
The myth. And then there's other things that like obviously calculated risk. Like you're assessing things, and then you're getting mentors. Like there's a million things that you can do to like reaffirm it. But like just like you're saying, like you're in it right now. And there's stuff that I'm sure that happens daily where you're like, just like you're saying, like that wasn't in the business plan for this person to do this thing, or for this resource to do that, or for this to hit the thing. But
deal with it.
I got to keep breath in and out every day, so I have to navigate it.
Yeah, I mean, and I think the most specific thing that I always told people when they would needle me about this was that just because I'm having fun making these beverages at home and getting the recognition that we were getting for them in competitions and in other venues, that's not the totality of this business. There is an actual business to be run. And that was the piece I said to people, I'm not ready for that. I'm not ready to run a business because, while it's great to have the freedom of running your own business, you have the freedom of running your own business. There's nobody that's coming to rescue you when something goes wrong. It's your business. And I wasn't ready for that. And in the last couple of years before I retired from my IT career, I took on some additional responsibility at the company I was at. I was formally leading a couple of small teams. I was seeing the level of patience and sort of reserved initial judgment you need to have about a lot of stuff to be an entrepreneur. And so I could feel like, all right, so I'm getting more comfortable with this. My attitude is more oriented to what I need to be able to do with this, because it's like so many things in life, being an entrepreneur is how you react to everything.
Yep.
You're never going to have all the answers. You're never going to have all the resources you need for every problem that's going to potentially happen, because you'll stack your resources up and then it's the problem you didn't anticipate. So you're never prepared, and you got to be ready for that, which means you have to have a flexible attitude, a flexible disposition. And 100%. I didn't for a long time. I was definitely not as flexible as I would have needed to be to do this. So I would tell anybody, if they're hesitating, think about it that way. And if you get kind of bent about stuff that happens at work on a regular basis, think about when that happens and there isn't anybody else to share that with.
Or keep it running.
Right?
Or just
If you're just going to get
fix
bent,
it.
then your business is not going to succeed. Your business is going to take a stumble that day because you're going to be focused on being bent about something that happened rather than, okay, what do I do now? What's the answer here?
Like assessment of the
Yeah.
situation.
It's like a flinch. It's
Yeah.
like you waited too long to like react. It's like, okay, like you have to be able to take the hit.
Hesitation
you
is
have to be able to
devastation.
stay calm.
Yeah. And that's in where when you're distracted by, God damn it, why did that happen? And you let that go on too long and you're getting yourself all twisted up and, overly dramatic about it and everything, you're missing the opportunity just to react and be like,
Right.
okay, yeah, this is my thing. And, this isn't going to kill my business. So I just got to come up with a really good answer right now that'll smooth this over. Maybe it's a short-term answer and I'll need to get back to something else, but that's where the win is. And I didn't feel like I was going to be able to do that. So I think I was smart, to say it that way, to have realized that I was not the person who would have been able to do that yet. But I felt like maybe I could learn what I needed to learn or expose myself to things I felt like I hadn't yet to help me in my own career so I can get that out of the career that's waning and feed it into the other one. That's why I took on additional responsibility, took some chances, stuck my neck out with senior management this company in a few ways. It didn't make me terribly popular, but it also put me in situations where I was stressed out, and needed to grow, needed to be a different person, needed to change the way I was going to do things. And it helped. And then I'm like, okay, I feel like I'm much more ready for this now. So it seemed like a
That's
natural
awesome.
thing to
Right.
say.
Self-awareness is that is like the biggest gift in the world. If you have that and you literally knew, you're like, there's traits of me that I need to be in a certain position for me to go to the next step. It's like, if you didn't have that, you would have either just gone like right into it and then hit more mistakes that it shouldn't have, or maybe waited too long. So that's crazy. That's awesome that you had that.
So Margot, how honest of a statement was that? Was that pretty spot on?
That was pretty spot on. I mean, and people ask me too, they're like, oh, well, you're still working, the full-time day job and he gets, I love how they phrase it too, like he gets to do Ancient Fire full-time. And I actually find that amusing because speaking of self-awareness, I actually like my day job. I mean, yes, it drives me crazy on a daily basis.
Right.
Yep. Yeah.
But I had struggled for so long to find what I wanted to do that now that I am doing something that I'm good at that I wanted to do, I'm okay with the fact that I go do that every day and he's here taking care of what needs to be taken care of here.
Sure.
Also, you have to have, if you're doing this in a partnership at all, you've got to have 100%. I completely trust
Yeah.
every decision that he makes. I completely support every decision that he makes because I'm not the one who's here 9 hours a day
To have the context.
to have the context. So, I mean, he'll message me during the day and be like, hey, I got this question, or hey, we got this opportunity. What do you think? But he knows that I'm at my day job. So sometimes I can't answer right away.
Yep.
And I know that if I can't answer for an hour and it's a decision that needs to be made within that hour, that he's going to make the right decision for the business because he's the feet on the ground here.
Right.
Well, the example is the one today. So the American Cancer Society has a program called Hops for Hope. And I think they started it last year, although I could be misquoting. That's when I first saw it. And they contacted us last fall about it because they were working with, I think, Long Blue Cat and Pipe Dream and at least one other area brewery.
Love both those places.
We were actually at Pipe Dream.
Yeah. And we're on the beer trail here, which has been really fun to.
I was going to ask about that.
Yeah, we can
community.
definitely
We'll get into that.
we can get back to that. So,
Sick.
So we were actually in the midst of our own American Cancer Society campaign in the fall at the time they contacted us. Being a longtime cancer survivor, we've actually been very active with American Cancer Society for a number of years.
Awesome.
And so we brought that into our business. So we said to them, hey, we really can't do this right now because we're finishing up with that. And then we've got one for the food bank that we're doing, through the end of the year. But, let's catch back up. Well, I saw on Facebook today that they posted, please, let local breweries know this is something we're doing. And so I contacted them and basically I had made the decision we're going to do it. I picked a date. It means we're gonna set a percentage of our proceeds for the evening there to get donated to the American Cancer Society. I looked at all of that and said, I can make this choice because she's going to be totally cool with all of it. She's actually going to be excited about it, going, oh, that's great. That's a great event for us to get involved in because it's in our core passion and it's something that we can also do here. Like any of the events that we can do out of the meadery here, we know we can get all of our community involved right away as well. So we know that we can make it a success. sometimes when you get involved in external events, especially if it's new to you, you don't really know exactly what to expect. So you don't know exactly how much you can actually do. Right. So this one just seemed like a slam dunk. So I signed us up and went and did it. But I wasn't worried that I was in any risk of making that decision without reviewing it with her, because the impact of it is small on us, but the impact of it to who we're helping is actually going to be sizable, and they're excited about it. So, those are things where we have that agreement to be able to do that. But there'd be other things I'd be like, nope, I'll take that home. We'll have that conversation over dinner. We don't exactly know if this is the right choice or not, because I may have to make a decision in the middle of the day if I don't have time. But if I have time, it's always nice to hear somebody else's opinion, because sometimes you can get pretty wrapped up in what you're doing and lose, and not be focused only because you're thinking about it just one way. So it's nice to have the feedback.
I will say real quick that he's very much downplaying how much he did for the American Cancer Society. We raised about $110,000 over around 9 years. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah. He's testified in front of the New Hampshire State Senate as a cancer advocate. He was recognized by the
Apparently I have a cheerleader tonight.
He was recognized by Mass General every year, recognizes 100 people who did amazing work in the field of cancer advocacy, and Jay was nominated and was one of them. Got to go to a big gala event. It was really cool. But yeah, and that's like another thing. When people are like, well, how did you know that he'd be able to do this? It's like, because when he is passionate about something and when he believes in something, like there's no, like, just get out of the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if he believes in
this
something.
This is happening no matter what.
Superhuman.
Yeah.
So. Tenacity.
He downplays that. He downplays some of his achievements.
I don't downplay it for any reason other than, if you think about it, this story, we're in our 16th something year. There's so much. Yep. There's so many pieces. We've actually run long on podcasts before because people keep asking questions, and we just have answers for all these crazy things that we've done. I feel like that richness of the life that we've got to live, I'm sure, because I've heard the stories from other people too. Everybody's got this. Some people just don't necessarily know how to tell the story, and the fact that I'm downplaying, if you will, that piece of it was only because that wasn't necessarily the core part of the story I was trying to tell right then. But
I'm just really proud of him.
Yeah.
I have that in my corner. So I guess I should just say more about myself at some point. Thanks, Margot. Be less humble, Jay, because everyone's going to tell your story anyway. Well, maybe I'm letting other people tell my story too.
You did a good job.
Thank you.
You told it well.
Yeah. So to get back to the beer trail.
Yep.
We actually kind of fell into this location, which was cool.
How did it happen?
We were originally looking in primarily in Londonderry and Derry because we live in Londonderry.
Okay.
And there's a very active beer and craft beverage scene, obviously, in
I was
Derry
going
and
to say
Londonderry.
there's a couple meters.
Londonderry is looking good.
It's an awesome time.
It's a good scene.
Awesome time to be alive.
It is.
No, it is.
So our realtor had actually shown us a space across the street, and it just wasn't going to work for us. And he's like, oh, this place just came back on the market. Let's go look at it. And the minute we walked in here, we were like, come on. There's like backyard breweries right there because they were getting ready to open, I think.
So they were, right? So they rebranded and reopened as Backyard in over July 4th weekend, I think, in 2017.
Yeah.
Okay. And you guys are hitting a year in on this place in March.
Early March. Yep.
I saw.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So between that and then we knew Pipe Dreams is up there. We knew that Long Blue Cat
had
was
the coming
opening
soon sign forever. When they opened December 2017. So, in a mile and a half stretch of road, now you've got 3 craft producers. On Saturdays especially. We have people, we were just at Pipe Dream, we were just at Long Blue Cat, we were just at Backyard, we were just at Great North Ale Works across town, or Candy Rub Brewing, or we were in the Mill Yard at Millie's and Stark, So there's enough proximity to all these other places that no one's concerned necessarily that, they're not a brewery, they're a winery. Especially when
it's a craftery, though.
Yeah, it's craft beverage for sure. And our primary product line is a different type of mead than what most people that had mead.
What we're drinking right now is mead.
That's mead. Yes.
So it's way different than what I started out with, and I love this way more. This is awesome because this is to me, like if I'm to geek out a little bit on the beer side of it or the craft side of it, is killer, because this, if I was never educated on it before, which you can totally correct me, but at least from my friend group, a lot of my friends, I'm the educator on mead and I'm wicked new in mead, right? But this, you give to any of them and just don't even tell them what it is and they're in.
Yeah.
Yes.
Whereas other mead, I still love because I'm a wine drinker too, right? But that's not the same bridge to me as this right here, which right in line with cider taste. But I like this even more than cider. This is good.
Yeah, this was done on purpose. So let me introduce to you what this actually is. So this is a product called Making It Happen. So this is actually the second in what we call our Maker series. So our Maker series are meads at 7% alcohol, lightly carbonated, single honey. So this is actually made from blueberry blossom honey.
Cool.
So the first one in the series was called Maker's Legacy and made from raspberry blossom honey. And we've subsequently done versions with orange blossom honey, wildflower. We have a second with wildflower coming. And I think cranberry blossom honey will be the next net new one that we do.
Awesome.
These are a great way to understand what mead at this level of alcohol and the carbonation can actually be. There's no other ingredients in it except for that honey. It's a great introduction for people for a very social, casual version of mead, something that you can actually drink a glass of and be like, oh, wow, this is fun. Like, we hear a lot of interesting things about people's perception of the other meads that they've had. We hear too much alcohol in some cases. We also hear too sweet in some cases. We hear a few people say too wine-like. I think this, because of the carbonation, they bring it back to sort of a beer and cider experience, which it certainly is a very good parallel for. But we made this particular beverage our core offering when we started. We didn't introduce the stronger meads, which we do actually make until July, so it'd been open for a number of months. Cider didn't come online until about June as well, and we did that because we wanted to introduce people to a new version of mead.
Very
we
cool.
knew we weren't introducing people to mead per se because we have competition in the state of New Hampshire. There's Moonlight Meadery in Londonderry, Sap House Meadery in Ossipee. They'd been open for 8 years prior to us, so that they certainly had plenty of time to evangelize for mead, which we greatly benefited from because a lot of people know what the word mead actually means.
Right. It's less education for you than you would have had to do 15, 20 years
just
ago.
To introduce the idea that you can ferment honey and turn it into an alcoholic beverage. We do get a lot of people who come in here who know it has something to do with honey, but they don't really understand what. So we made this beverage sort of our central focus from the beginning, and it's still the thing that we make the most of because we wanted to give people another option for an alcoholic beverage to sit next to cider and beer, because we had so many occasions where we could just see that somebody was sitting somewhere and there was just not a beverage choice for them.
Sure.
Either they didn't like beer or couldn't drink beer, and the cider options were pretty dismal, not really big into cocktails or wine, and just wanted something else. We just thought, wow, sessionable mead would be awesome for people because you can do so much with it too. Like we're so this is like, I don't want to call it a starter mead because it's not really the right way, because it's got a good deal of its own complexity.
It's a good intro.
to it.
Absolutely.
But it is a good intro because it doesn't have all this other stuff hiding the honey flavor. Like, you get the honey flavor there.
You definitely do.
If you were to taste the blueberry blossom honey, you would actually be really amazed at how much you can immediately get the flavor parallels. There's nothing hidden here. You'd be like, wow, okay, that really does taste exactly like the honey. And that's what's been fun about this particular series, because we're able to introduce that to people. And they say, what is it supposed to taste like? The honey. Well, what do you mean? We'll go over to the honey tasting bar, go find a sample of blueberry blossom honey, take a taste of it, come back, take a taste of this, and then tell me what it should taste like.
Right.
And they do that, and they're like, oh, yeah, it should taste like the honey.
Tastes exactly like what I just ate.
And they're like, okay, so what does that mean for all the different honeys you have over there? I'm like, well, what do you think it means? They'd all taste different, wouldn't they? And just to see the moment where you just see the person's
All the bells and lights
I
start
don't even
going
understand
off.
what you just said right now, or like, just keep coming back. Just keep coming back, and you'll see it in action, and it'll make way more sense to you that whatever's over on that table you tasted, I can turn that into a mead that tastes almost exactly the same. Some of them would work well this way, some of them wouldn't. That's the knowledge of the maker. I have that information. I'm always checking out new ingredients, honey being one of them. So sometimes I might not make this particular style mead with a honey because it's saying, it's not going to work exactly the way people would want.
So it's got to land well for gluten-free market, right? Like
does.
like people who cannot, they just physically cannot drink a beer. and they can drink cider and then this now, right? Because sometimes people are cornered at cider when they go out with their friends, and then it's like if you go out to a brewery, which now obviously is so much more popular, what other choice do they have?
And that's why we're actually, so Great North Ale Works, we mentioned them a little earlier. So they're a brewery here in Manchester.
A friend of mine, Brandon, just started brewing for them.
He was just here.
No way.
It's just here on Friday night.
cool.
Friday
That's-
with his, I think his dad, Craig.
Oh,
Small
too
world.
funny.
Yeah.
That's too funny.
Small world.
But yeah, they have good stuff.
Rob and Lisa, who own the brewery, are
Sure.
very good friends of ours. They've been in the same homebrew club as us for like the last 9 years. So they've been huge supporters of us, and they have a guest tab because, like us, they have a beer and wine license, so they can serve other people's product.
Cool.
And they have put us on tap originally because they liked our stuff and they know that Jay knows his stuff.
Yeah.
And it has gone over so well that, I mean, we're on tap there almost all the time. And I think the reason is what you just said, is that people can go there, and if you want to drink beer, drink beer. If you want to have something that's not beer, have something that's not beer.
Yeah.
What's interesting and what is happening
Oh boy,
is that
swapping
they
over.
now have some people who are going there because they want to try our, they know we're on tap.
And when you're with the group, you can say yes to go there when you know that all your friends are going to be able to get whatever they want for the beer that's available,
Exactly.
and you know you have the non-beer option, which you're all excited to
You
have.
won't be that stick in the mud almost.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, like my wife, like I can drink an IPA for the rest of my life, like all day. I can wake up and drink coffee with an IPA. I'm cool. You can just put hops in my face. You know, my wife, not about it. Not about it. She still likes beer, but like that honestly has made us go to maybe some other breweries a little bit less because Great North is awesome, but they're so IPA and I love it. But that would make it so that she can come with me and I don't have to find another friend group to hit that place up for her.
But we're on tap there right now.
Yeah.
Awesome.
For as
And you
long as
guys
it
usually
lasts. So
have
they
it
just
here,
got 2 kegs Saturday, so it should still be on tap when they open up on Thursday. Stuff's been moving there pretty quickly, which is it's challenging because we're making to keep our taps full here. We've got some restaurant accounts, and they've become a very solid account for us too. They have some other rotating stuff that they want to put on their guest tap as well, which is sometimes beer. So we're not on every day. And apparently there have been people that have complained going, hey, where's the Ancient Fire? They're like, well, no, we've got one of our gypsy brewers that brews with us. Their beer that they just came out with is on tap now. So they'll be back in a couple of weeks. And, and that works for us because that's the way it should be. But it's funny to see how quickly people got used to it.
The people want it. For sure.
And we've had, the cool thing
awesome.
about this place is that if you come in here on any given night and we're busy, there's such a cross section of people in here. It's amazing. You have people who normally only drink wine who come here. You have people who normally only drink craft beer who come here. You have people who only drink Bud Light or Budweiser who come here.
Awesome.
And
we don't serve either of those things. So I don't know why. I mean, they're certainly not coming here for that.
the wrong tree,
Branching
no.
people's horizons.
yeah, it's like my nephew-in-law. This is one of my favorite stories, but he drinks only Bud and Bud Light. And Jay, my poor husband, for years had been trying to try this beer, try
Rousing him.
that beer, try this beer. And
Can
he
you be a
just,
human being, please?
and he would say to me, he's like,
Be cultured.
I'm trying his homebrew to be nice, but I really, it's not my thing.
Not
And
it,
I like
yeah.
Bud or Bud Light. And he loves this stuff. So him and my niece had gone to a craft place, a craft beer bar, and they're like, well, maybe we can try other craft things now that you won't only drink Bud Light.
Yep.
And he didn't like any of the beers that he tried.
Oh no.
And what he said to my niece was, you
only
know
mead.
what? We just have to face it. I like Bud Light and I like mead.
Hey, you got them into the craft.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But so it's really kind of cool. I mean, that's my favorite part of this whole experience is the tap room, is people who never would talk to each other, would never have any other reason to meet. Retirees are talking to recent college graduates,
Right.
It's
Network.
the craft beverage, to me, the craft beverage tap room is one of the last places where people go and socialize with each other. And it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No one's looking at their phones when they're here. They're all talking to each other.
Randomly talk to some
Especially-
stranger at the bar next to you, assuming that you're not going to get dismissed because it's, someone's place where they go to get away from somebody else. And you're here because you want to be social. You're
Right. The community.
yeah,
because
that you're part of a
people that are
community when you
drinking
come here.
craft. I mean, they're not doing that because they just don't they care about it.
Yeah.
So it's so much easier, like for anyone hitting the beer trail, anyone that's like hitting other craft breweries and places like that, then there's a lot to talk about anyway, naturally, right?
They're like
There's
the
a
new community
anyway.
centers, as far as I'm concerned. Like they're places where people go to gather and be a part of a community that's bigger than them. I mean, we have regulars who come in here now that are all friends with each other. They all come on the same night because they know all those other people are going to be here on the same night.
They didn't know each other a year ago.
That's awesome.
And they might have met somewhere else. And I mean, give it time and let people move around as they often do. Who knows? They probably would have, but they met here, and that's really cool to see. And it's, for us, it's an affirmation that the business is doing what it's supposed to do. Because, you know, as the person who makes the mead and cider, I mean, I've got to be good at that. I've got to be passionate about it. I've got to have my head in that game. But I also have to remember that that's not the sole purpose for why we're here. It's not. It's part of an offering of things, if you will, that make this go. And you know, the entertainment piece, giving people a fun place to hang out, and you know, making it truly fun, whether that just be because the two of us are cracking jokes, or we were talking about maybe getting down one of those old like sit down video game consoles. You know, I'm just thinking about the Donkey Kong one that was at my dentist when I was a kid forever.
That would be
like,
sweet.
Putting that in the corner, you know, putting that in the corner over here, and just because again, you get, you know, we found, you know, we've got all different ages of people that come in here, but we've got a lot of people that grew up at the same time we did. You know, we've got some pop culture references, you know, in our decor and our names, and they get that stuff immediately. So
Got the nice Warriors poster.
Yeah, the Warriors poster.
When I
Yeah.
came in, I was like, let's go.
You know, you get a video game like that, and you know, it's going to bring people back to their childhoods. It's going to bring back, you know, them to want to have those experiences. And then when you realize that, you know, they met somebody here, like, yeah, come over, play me in Donkey Kong or whatever. And you just look at that going, yeah, it's not really about the beverage anymore, is it?
It's the atmosphere, it's the feel, it's the invitingness.
100%.
And I really enjoyed how you guys have been talking about the community so much. And it's a cool contrast, especially how you were talking about coming from corporate America, and how I feel that corporate America and what people's idea of corporate America is kind of like this very me against you, my business against all these other businesses, and it's pretty apparent in this area. And you know, we can
John
attest
said
to
it
this
in
when we talk to
episode
John,
5.
is that
Yeah.
he, you know,
From
you
Pipe
think
Dream.
like, oh, you know, oh, I own Pipe Dream Brewery, I don't want any of these other breweries to do well. I want all the beer people to come to my brewery and this and that. But that's not how it is. Oh, you know, oh, you're into this and I'm into that, and I want to be. And so I wanted to, you know, kind of pick on that a little more. What's the significance of the community feel, and how it's an actual community, not only in the region, but also in the feel and in the field. How do you guys like cultivate that in between other business owners and other corporations? Because even what you were talking about, the American Cancer Association, even stuff like that in corporate America is different. Giving money and whatnot, whereas, you know, with you, it's personal. Right. You know, this is my business. I'm giving to this. I feel like it has a more
really
weight to
work.
it.
That's why it can really be successful, is because it is personal. I think we did another event for the food bank at the end of the year, which reminds me, we just go drop that donation off, by the way. And it was not as successful as the one with the American Cancer Society. No less personal for us, because we've been supporters of the food bank for a long time. But we ran out of time in organizing that particular event, and there was a component of it that I didn't have time to organize, which would have been an opportunity for us to get some of our community members to actually go to the food bank with us and participate in an activity that they do on a weekly basis. And we didn't do that. And had we, that event probably would have been at least as successful as the one that we did for the American Cancer Society, because we could have made it personal for them too. So with us having the really deeply personal story, one that we were willing to tell, one we were willing to tell here, one that we actually got to tell in some really interesting ways when we saw how we resonated with people. We actually had a couple of groups come here and actually celebrate people they had lost. So, which was weird. I didn't like, with everything that I had been through and everything that we thought we were going to do with this, I had totally missed that. Like, I had not thought, oh, wait a minute. So people might actually come to celebrate with us, even though they might be celebrating like a sad end for them, but it's therapeutic for them. It would have been an opportunity for them to be like, we know we're in the right place. These people get us.
These are people that understand.
Right. So that event was wicked successful, and we understood why. The next one we did wasn't as successful, but that's because we couldn't make it quite as personal, and we didn't do the piece that I wanted to do, which we had originally talked about because we were running up against the holidays and running out of time.
Yeah.
Had we, and we will, we're going to get to that. I think it'll change that. So the personal piece is extremely important when you're trying to engage with everyone. You mentioned something about the breweries and competition. We all are technically competitors with each other because everybody's got a limited number of dollars in their pocket. They're going to allocate some of it to go out and drink and hang out with their friends, which means some of us aren't going to get any of it on a given week, and some of us might get all of it. Depends on the person's thoughts on where they want to go and what they really like. And some people just get really focused on a particular brand, and that brand ends up getting the windfall of their resources. But we are all in competition with each other, and it can be kind of challenging when you realize that, because we're all flooding the market with come check us out, check this new release out, this and that, and we're playing to that. We might be using a little bit of FOMO sometimes to cultivate interest in everything. So we're all playing this game where we're twisting people's emotions and trying to see, whether or not they'll lean our way or not on a given
Battle
occasion.
for attention.
Yeah.
Always, everything.
That's like the theme of this whole entire podcast.
It is. And we can be pretty ruthless with each other as business owners. I mean, given the opportunity, and as the competition ratchets up, I am sure that there will probably be situations where you're like, wow, those two places don't seem to really like each other. And it isn't that they don't like each other necessarily. It's this, that one or both took a good shot at the other indirectly by being successful.
We're in the same market.
Yeah. At a point in time,
Not like, how can I beat on
something.
other person? It's just like business.
Yeah, and somebody came along, ate the lunch, walked away, and the other one's like, oh man, and then somebody did it the next time, and you might think that they're battling each other, but they're battling to get the community's attention.
Yeah.
Because we only have so much attention to pay. I mean, there's only so many hours in the week that
it's like a trade-off, because like obviously you guys picked this area and this guest tap stuff. Like there's so much happening inside there to feed each other, right? So you have so much business that's happening. Like haven't heard of Ancient Fire until you go here. Well, this person says Ancient Fire, this person says Great North, or whatever it is. Like there's so much business that you're getting because of it, but there's also so much business that's obviously, like you're talking about right now, like the attention,
like jostling for position, but the market is also
finite resource.
Yeah.
You guys do have this like vibrant community, and like obviously a very vibrant and interested, base of people that like want your product. They want your feel. They want like everything that comes with it.
Yeah, we don't get upset when we see other producers in this market be successful, because we want them to be. I mean, if nothing else, then it's an admission that our local economy is strong. I mean, it's something as simple as that. Like any business owner that wants to see other people in their own industry fail is losing sight of the fact that when that happens, there's collateral damage in the business community, which probably ends up boomeranging back to everybody.
Somewhere, yeah.
Somebody's supplying us all with the same something here, whether it's, vendors for different products, or, a bank that doesn't invest in craft anymore because they had one go belly up on them, there's who knows what it could actually be. But, so we don't get upset when we see other people be successful, because we think that's actually a good thing. But as we mature as a company, being new right now, we have a lot of benefit of people are discovering us. And when you discover something new in this craft community, it gets exciting.
Yeah.
Ooh, we got to go check this place out. I've never heard of this before. It won't be like that forever.
Right.
And, at that point, then you start looking at what everybody else is doing, how much attention is being paid to them in a different way, because now you're wondering, how much of that can I get? What do I have to do to get it? Now I'm not so much worried about am I taking it away from anybody else as much as am I broadening the pie, and can I slide in and get a piece of it, that because I've made the game bigger because of what we're doing, then I can get my piece of it and nobody suffers because of it. I mean, ideally that's what I would love for it to be the case, because I don't want anybody who's already been out there doing their thing to take a hit, but we are all in competition with each other. People's
Healthy competition.
People's tastes and preferences are going to
You
take
found
them.
a pocket, like obviously, like this type of meat is something that I haven't had ever, and I love it. Right, so like you've found a pocket, and you've created a pocket where you've created a whole new market, and you have a nice spot to sit in. But then it's not wrong to say that like other craft lovers will latch onto that, and that's an existing market that's been there that you're tapping into too. So it's just natural.
Somebody actually asked me last weekend, do you think there's anybody who's paying attention to what you're doing and thinking about coming into the marketplace behind you guys?
Sure.
It's entirely possible.
Yeah.
I would be willing to bet that we would have already met them yet, because they'd probably come in here and sit at the bar, because they'd probably see how much they could get out of us without tipping their hand to us. So you got to be probably somebody who's a home brewer already, somebody who's probably fairly decent at it, has a pretty good feel.
It's a Trojan horse.
A Trojan podcast.
Hey, I'm still on extract. I'm not anywhere.
So we feel like we probably would have already met them. So we have met a number of homebrewers in here, and have we met some that I think probably have the potential to do this? Yes. Do I think we've met any of them that are ready to do it right now? No. And I think that's because what we're doing is still new enough.
Yep.
Not well understood enough by people who are, dipping into homebrew. And then there's a business that you have to run to be able to do this. That's not easy to do.
It's not for everybody.
Yeah. There's not a low barrier here. There's a pretty high barrier to go and do this. So am I that worried about it? Not really. As soon as we start identifying that there are people that are coming in here on a regular basis and starting to kind of poke around at details that would make me think that they're thinking a little bit more about this than sort of just personal fascination, that might change my story a little bit, just because, if a competitor comes in, if they're really good, they could eat our lunch. It could happen tomorrow.
Expand and hire them. Boom.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
You're asking too many questions. You want to work?
Yeah. Do you need a job? Exactly. Yeah. Cut them off from starting their own business soon enough. So, but that's right. But that's the answer is that my story might change about how I feel like I've met that person, but it would be, what would my reaction be? What would I want to do? Right now, I'd want to help them. I'd want them to understand, do you know how complex this business is to get into? Is there something I can do to help you with that? Because you need to understand that before you do it. Understand that well before you get started, and you'll be all set. So I probably would help them be a more potent competitor, because I'd want them to really understand, if you really want to do this, like here is how you want to do this in New Hampshire. I probably would be actually helping them really take a shot at us. But
we had people help us.
Yeah, so we got to pay it forward.
So how we know people in the community is we kind of lucked out a lot. So we've been members of Brew Free or Die, which is the biggest home brewing community in New Hampshire, at least.
Awesome.
So Rob and Lisa North, who own Great North Ale Works, Brew Free or Die members. Paul St. Ange, brewer at Backyard Brewer, used to be a Brew Free or Die member. Michael and Bernice Fairbrother of Moonlight Meadery, Brew Free or Die members. So
Brew Free or Die, check them out.
Brew Free or Die. Check them out on Facebook.
It's a small
We don't
world
get a
in
kickback
every
for
industry.
mentioning that either. Yes.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
And that's,
I've noticed that.
And I think that's what's wonderful about it. It's just I can plug you and help you, and I expect nothing in return. And I think that's really what people's allure to small businesses and creative projects is on the whole, because they don't feel like there's this dishonest giant thing at them just trying to shove a product or something down their throat. They do feel, hey, this is just two people who are doing their thing and they love doing it, and as long as they can keep cultivating that, then it'll keep happening, which is, and like you were saying with the, I'm broadening the pie. Well, if you're cultivating that in somebody else, well, then they're broadening the pie too. And, we say it all the time, rising tides,
Raise all
ships,
boats.
raise all ships and whatnot. So
Absolutely.
I think that's an important aspect, and it definitely is something that you guys touch on quite a bit when you're talking about the other people in the community and how important the community has been in you guys getting off and how it could be important for other people getting off.
I mean, the mead making community itself nationwide is still very small. There's probably only about 500 or so meaderies or wineries that may make mead in addition to other products that are licensed and operating in the United States. So that's small. I mean, the number of breweries is like 6,000 or 7,000 or something. So I mean, we're less than 10% of that size. So it's a community that people do know each other fairly well, but there are still a lot of people in that community that I've never met because there aren't that many opportunities to meet them. There are a few nationwide events that are done, within the meat industry. So there are a couple of opportunities every year to go and meet people. But we last year and this year we haven't been able to make that only because we have a business to run here and we're focused on our local marketplace. So. But we have had a number of mead makers who actually have made the trip here. And we've got some others that want to make the trip. And we will help them however they want because we feel like they're doing the same thing in their local marketplace that we are, which eventually, as we grow our influence beyond just, say, 30 miles of Manchester, New Hampshire, which is pretty much where our influence is right now. Once we grow beyond that, we're helping with that rising tide throughout the country because we're making a mark on a region and saying, hey, mead, it's a thing here. People should know about it more. Multiple styles of mead. We've introduced a different style of mead than what people have been used to in this area. So that raises the specter of what this thing is. So if they're doing that in their region and people being as mobile as they are, people are going to start seeing mead more and more as they travel going, wow, this is a thing everywhere. This is kind of
a different game.
Yeah.
Right? Like right now you go into a Hannaford's and you can walk by a bottle of Moonlight Meadery on like a small little end cap shelf maybe, right? But how crazy would it be to think that, the kid who's in college right now walking in to grab something to go drink for the night walks back instead of getting like a 6-pack of Woodchuck or something. They're like, hey, I'm going to grab this 6-pack of Ancient Fire right now because it's awesome. You know what I mean? Like that happens when that industry changes like that.
And I think we have a culture too nowadays, especially with younger people, where they are more adamant to, I mean, maybe I'm speaking anecdotally a little bit, but I'm more likely if I see, local this X, whatever it is.
That's a fact.
I'm just like, oh man, I would much rather support this local place than buy a 6-pack of Bud Light right now. And that's just, I don't even care what your product is. That's just the fact that it's local and people like to support local things and people, because that's just a reflection of you. That's just somebody who's in your community who's really probably no different than you are. That's a guy who lives down the street from you or a woman who lives down the street from you.
That gets back to the health of the local business community. I mean, I think at the heart of it, people that embrace local, they're thinking that there's an impact that their dollar has spent locally that it doesn't necessarily have when it's spent elsewhere. And we know that that's certainly the case. And I think with beverage, its localness is actually, there's something here that people don't necessarily understand because it's never been this way for most of the people that are alive in the United States right now. Almost every neighborhood had its own pub.
Yeah. That's like Germany.
In years past. Yeah. And there's places where you go, countries you travel to where it's still like that. So I think that's what we're all launching back towards. Although some of us don't necessarily know that that's the case and wouldn't really understand what that meant because we never saw it. So it's lore to us, but it sounds cool and it sounds neat. So under the guise of, well, if we produce something locally, we can get a local community to rally around us, for the health of our local business environment. But there's also this other piece where the neighborhood bar model is starting to reemerge. And,
I love that.
And I think people are gravitating towards it, whether they realize or not, that it's an old and very traditional type thing.
Definitely.
Whether that is present for people or not, I don't think really matters because it's clearly working. But that's something that it's a twofold thing. Not only are you helping the local business community, but you're also paying tribute to something that used to be this way that people took for granted. That,
for sure.
The bar you went to was the one that you walked by on your way home from work.
Yeah.
You didn't go 2 streets over to that bar unless, of course, you were meeting a friend or something like that because you had your own. You had your own neighborhood bar. Your house was literally across the street. You knew the guy who owned it. Why weren't you going to go there? That's exactly where you were going to go because everybody you knew was going to be there when you went. And I think that that's what we're getting back to. And that makes it fun too, because you have that, where does this go? What does this look like when we get to the point where we're going to do the next transition? Where we're going to look back and go, wow, that was a really fun experiment. What do we do next? You know, so I think that's a piece that sometimes people don't necessarily remember about it, because it's not something most of us really understand. It seems new to us to have these neighborhood pubs, and it is for us, but it's not in a longer term view.
Like this recycling back of history. Now is
we are doomed to repeat it.
Yeah, indeed. Hopefully not horribly, but
let's hope not.
What's like the hub of mead? You were saying how much smaller in scale meaderies are in terms of breweries, but so where's like the hub? Is New England, you know, where you find a lot of it, most of it?
It's an interesting question. So I'll of course I'll drop some names, because I have no problem doing this. I think for the benefit of the industry, it makes sense for people to understand, you know, where you might find more of what we're doing. So New England is certainly turning out to be a place that has meaderies. For a small state like New Hampshire, to have 3 is actually kind of a surprise to people, because we're a relatively small population. We're a state that people can easily forget about unless you're in a presidential election year. It's pretty easy for you to forget that New Hampshire's here.
It's true.
So
and
the
all of a
fact that
sudden
we have
Manchester has like 10 people in the street running around like.
Yeah. But at the same time, it's actually much harder to forget about New Hampshire in the context of mead than it used to be, because Moonlight Meadery is actually well known across the country. They distribute to quite a few states. So their brand is actually recognizable. The fact that people are buying it off shelves there and may not actually know it comes out of New Hampshire is truly possible. But I'm betting a lot of people are like, wow, that's really neat. New Hampshire, I wouldn't have expected, because they don't know what to expect. Like, what do we do in New Hampshire? Like, what do we produce?
We have some mountains.
Yeah, we have some lakes, some mountains.
Maple syrup.
Yeah, and every 4 years, the presidential election gets all whipped up.
We have a lot of vacation homes for people that live in Massachusetts.
Yes,
Right,
we do.
That's big.
So
No
certainly
sales tax.
more well known.
I love New Hampshire.
I do too.
Every New England state except Rhode Island, to my knowledge, there's got to be a meadery in Rhode Island somewhere. And if I'm already supposed to know what it is, I apologize.
Sorry ahead of time.
To already apologizing ahead of time if I've forgotten you. But there are meaderies in all the New England states, and so it's certainly an area that it's something that people do. If you were to travel to other places of the country and wanted to immerse yourself in mead, there are a couple places that you could go. Michigan. Is a big hotbed for it. So Ferndale, Michigan actually has a couple of decent sized meaderies in it. Bee Nectar, Schramm's Meadery, one of the sort of the top meaderies in a high end dessert style mead with a lot of local or estate grown fruit. So very meticulous in the way they do things. So they've caught quite a bit of attention for the last few years. Bee Nectar's been around for quite a number of years as well, and they do a sessionable mead, a lot of bottled. We don't get it here in New Hampshire, but you can get it down in Massachusetts. We actually first ran into sessionable mead out in Oregon, I want to say maybe back in 2008 or 2009, and it was from Nectar Creek, and they actually just finished a big expansion. They've got a much bigger production facility and tap room, so clearly that's been booming for them. California, I was just in San Diego last May and visited a relatively new meadery that was there. They've had 2 or 3 more open up in the San Diego area since. Austin, Texas is where Meridian Hive is. They make sessionable mead, some of the best that I've actually had. The last time I hung out with them, they had actually won, I think, 4 gold medals at the international mead making event for their sessionable meads that year. I mean, and you try them all, and you're like, no kidding. These are really good, like really, really clean, great flavors, really easy to drink, which is, you know, what the style of mead is supposed to be like. And so I've kind of ringed the country. You start in New England, head out Midwest, Oregon, California, back to Texas, but honestly, everywhere in between. We have friends that are opening up meaderies in Kansas, in Maryland,
The Dakotas.
I mean, more in Michigan. So it's everywhere, but because there's only a few hundred of us, it's easy to miss it.
Right.
Unless you already know about it, someone's got to introduce it to you, or you've got to see it randomly on tap somewhere going, hey, where's that from?
Get on the mead game, people.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what we're trying to tell people is that travel to find it. We've got friends that open up meaderies in Delaware and Maryland recently. We had someone in from Washington D.C. I said, hey, within I think an hour, maybe 2 hours of you, there's a whole bunch of new ones too. They never even heard the names of any of them, because just like us, they're small. Their sphere of influence is fairly small. Their advertising doesn't reach that far beyond their local area. A, because we're not big enough yet to magnify that type of reach, and B, you don't really want to, because you can't satisfy the demand of the local audience you already have. You go too crazy and advertise too much, you're going to be chasing expansion like mad in this, because when people finally do have it, they do generally fall in love with it. And it's
absolutely.
The product does do a good job of selling itself, which is a nice asset to have right now as a new business. Right. Mead has been, I think, easier to sell than I thought it was going to be.
Especially Cruising Elm.
Yeah. So Cruising Elm, our Concord grape flavored mead, it's going to be the bane of my existence. I can't make enough of it right now. And right now I'm on a schedule where I can't actually accelerate the next batch of it I want to make, and I really want to, but I can't. I'm going to sort of back up against the wall for timing to be able to do that, and we might run out of it again this weekend.
But if Jason is listening, we will have it on tap for the Super Bowl. He's one of our regulars, and he insists that every time the Patriots started winning, when he started drinking Cruising Elm while watching the Patriots.
You have to save
Here
one.
comes the sports.
So literally within like 30 seconds of them winning the game on Sunday, he had pinged us on Facebook and said, I will be in for the Super Bowl.
Oh my God.
So I think,
Superstition.
It's been a little bit easier to sell than we had thought it was going to be. I mean, and does that last forever? Probably not, just because once you saturate people that are naturally inclined to want to try new things, you're going to work a little bit harder to penetrate into an audience that you haven't messaged to yet. But it's been great to be able to have the product really sell itself. When people come in, sometimes they're like, well, I don't really know what to expect. I don't know what to think. Like, just, dealer's choice on a flight. And then that gives us the opportunity to give them 4 different things from our menu. Give them some solid things that you're pretty sure that, if their palate's sort of in that sweet spot, that they're going to dig at least a couple of them, and then give them a couple that, if they've got an adventurous palate, they may be all about them as well. And I can't think of any time that's not really worked for someone to say, wow, this is really interesting. A few people are like, it's okay. It's maybe not my thing. Mostly sometimes people are like, it's too sweet. They like dry stuff. Yep. They like dry cocktails, dry wine. Yeah, you're probably not that be jazzed about what we're doing here, because it does have sugar in it. And if you're really if your palate's just averse to the sweet flavor, if it's just not that exciting to you, you might leave here with less than an excited opinion about it because it wasn't for you.
Preferential.
Yeah, but but we've never had anybody say that they thought the stuff was horrible because it was too sweet. It's just it's not really for me. Right. Some people ask, what's the driest thing you have? We have some that are drier, so we'll load them up with a couple ones that are dry, and as an intro, that usually works pretty well. And sometimes they'll try the sweeter ones, going, oh, I didn't think I'd like that as much, but I actually really do like this.
Sweet. So I could go on probably forever with you. But I do have to cap this out. Yeah. I think you said something that you had to you had to run somewhere.
No, we just have more. I just have more production work to do out back to finish up my day. So
forever.
Yes, that hour did go by really fast.
That Cruising Elm, he's just out there laboring on that thing. No,
actually, I wasn't doing anything at all with that today. So what's funny about it, I'll tell you why I'm back up against the wall. So the way we produce our stuff, something like Cruising Elm gets flavored right before it gets finished up. So it needs mead that's already been fermented. That mead came out of a tank today. It needs another day or so to ferment. So I'm on schedule to keg it on the 31st, which is when I want to do it, which is next Thursday. I'd love it if I could do it sooner, but I'm not going to be able to. If it were 2 weeks from now, I'd be able to actually keg it and have it available before the end of the weekend so we wouldn't run out. But I just can't because of how quickly the supply has crashed with it. So what I was working on today is actually other stuff because there's nothing else I can do. I can't make it any quicker than that. And so we might run out again this weekend. We've actually already been out for part of a Friday night and one Saturday already this month. So we'll have a riot by the end of the weekend if we do it again. And we saw
I don't get my Cruising Elm.
I know. I'm like, God
they're
damn
outside
it.
to break in the windows.
Just flipping cars.
And we saw something that first day. It was not on tap this month that I didn't expect that we would see. people went home with an empty growler. They did not want anything else. It is the one thing that they love. They came here. They had a flight with other stuff in it, but the growler was cruising out. And if they couldn't have it, they were happy to try some other things, but nothing sang to them in a way that they'd be willing to fill that growler with it and take it home. They'll wait. I did not expect to see that. And you got to love that. How can you hate
the demand?
Yeah, that they love that thing so much. And, so you go home kicking yourself going, I guess I should have made more of that the last time around. You could drive yourself nuts with that. You'll never be able to do that. I could make only that for the rest of my life and sell it so that I wasn't sitting on piles of kegs of it, and I'd probably still run out of it.
Right.
Because if people really like it that much, they'll find it.
Sells itself.
Yeah, they'll find it. So, and so it's been very exciting to be able to do that. And we hope that we have some other products that have actually been harder to keep on tap. We've not invested as much in making them as frequently. We are doing more of that now because people kept asking about them. So we're probably setting ourselves up to have a couple products like this before the end of this year where we just can't make enough of it. And it disappears every once in a while for a short period of time just because of our production schedule. And we just hope that people will be patient with us about that. Like, we don't need a riot. Like, let's, can we get you something else?
I promise.
Exactly. Yeah. Trust me, it'll be back in 2 weeks. So
I've got 4 questions that I ask every time at the end. I changed it because I used to have a question where I said, what made you initially get into it? But like, I kept getting that like every time, like I got it. Like, I know why you're here, So now I just go right in.
We get the feel.
I ask, what is the biggest mistake that you've ever made in this process? And everyone's super positive as an entrepreneur. So like, everyone's like, well, it wasn't a mistake because I learned from it.
There are no
What's like something that you'd throw out there, just like maybe is like someone who's getting either into this industry or any business for themselves, that you'd be like, hey, look out for this, or maybe do this a little bit differently than I did because this wasn't the best way.
That's a good one. I guess transition from corporate America to this. This is my business. I am very passionate about this. I do get to do this full time, but make no mistake, I am working harder than I ever did before.
Sure.
If anyone is thinking about going into the beverage business and you rock a desk right now, go and volunteer at a friend's brewery for a day and just make sure that you're willing to do that day after day after day. Because it's backbreaking work. And I worked a desk for 25 years. I was not immediately ready for it. I've gotten used to it. You can condition yourself. It's like working out. It's like strength training. Like, you can condition yourself. So but I've also gotten used to being sore all the time. So I guess it's not so much of a mistake as just misjudging the impact of it.
Okay.
And it will have an impact. So, but if you're coming from a place where you labor, the impact will probably be the opposite. Don't focus on that part alone. Are you similarly capable of like the cat in the hat, twiddling the plate and all this other stuff on multiple fingers at the same time? Like, can you do all that stuff? And that piece we were ready for, because in corporate America, you learn how to do that pretty quickly. The laboring piece, I knew it was hard work. But as I started working in friends' breweries in the summer of 2017, as we're getting work here, I'd come home and I'd be like, oh man, I'm in for something, because this was a long day and I'm already sore and tired. And yeah, I stack that up 6 days a week.
Absolutely. All right. So on the flip side, what's the best idea that you've had throughout this process?
From my perspective,
Oh, Margot's got it.
it was our hashtag.
That's true. That's true.
Hashtag delicious AF.
AF.
Who made it? That's the social media groundbreaking maneuver.
I think what's funny, and you'll appreciate this because you were mentioning being a millennial, is that we will have younger millennials come in. And
they probably eat
whisper
that.
they'll whisper really quiet to me. They'll be like, this has a different meaning, right?
I know, it's called the double entendre.
And my response is always, that I'm not that old. Like, I understand what the Twitter is and the Facebooking.
Even though you're not really the one that does it. You got to go.
I know that's not a pound sign. Thank you.
Yes. So I would say between that and understanding from having a conversation from the beginning that our primary goal, like the mead is great and the product is great, but our primary goal was to build as much of a community as we could. And like, it's paid back in so many different ways that we never expected. Like, we have so much support from our core people who love our product, who love our place, that, I mean, a couple weeks ago, I went to the wedding of 2 of our regulars. They invited us to their wedding.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I've only known them for a few months, so I mean, it's not like we knew them and they started coming here. We literally met them here. And
Wow, that's great.
Right.
I think the hashtag is definitely been very important because it's very, very engaging for people, for sure.
Yeah.
We put it on a T-shirt, so people see that. I think we get comments on it probably at least once a week. I would say at least that much.
That's
So
awesome.
it's definitely still paying back a lot.
Cool. Where do people keep up with you guys? I know that you're involved in like a ton of different communities. Where do people keep up with Ancient Fire in general, other than the flat out tap room? Like maybe they're in another state or something and they want to keep up with you.
That would be, well, right now, if you want to know what's going on, the best place to go is the Facebooks.
The Facebooks.
Yeah.
And
Not a millennial there.
I would say that if you're outside of New Hampshire, that within probably the next 2 months, we are going to be available in 32 states via Vino Shipper, which is an online wine distributor.
Okay. Cool.
So it won't be our crushable product. It'll be our stronger standard meads. But yeah, that'll be in the next couple of months. That'll be up and running.
Cool.
We have a pretty active Instagram account. I like to show pictures of things that are going on. Like we made 2 big batches of mead today. It's the most mead we've made here in a day since we opened. And we actually started fermenting about a year ago. So it's a big move for us to actually be filling up 2 tanks like that today, just because we need to get ahead of demand. So one of the other things that I think is important, and I mention this every once in a while to people, I don't know how many people are paying attention in the local craft community. We're not in the booze business. People will be surprised to really understand, like, take to heart, you're not really in the booze business. You're in the entertainment business.
Yeah.
And when you really understand what that means, you'll focus on all of the areas work together. The beverage has to bring its piece to the party, but you've got to put everything else around it. And when you focus on the fact that people are coming to you for an experience, they want to be entertained, or they want to have fun in conjunction with your experience.
Sure.
So being here to be able to hang out with their friends may be enough for them to have fun. The beverage adds that piece to it. If you can provide that and you can remind yourself that you're in their entertainment business and you want to make sure that people are enjoying themselves, not just because they're drinking.
It's not just like there is no build it and they will come, right? So you can build the sickest meadery ever and your mead could be amazing, right? And people are still going to buy it. But if this place is the worst to hang out in and like bad things happen here, then they're not going to come. Even if the meat is amazing, they'll probably buy it on the shelf or something and hang out at home and drink it. But like, it wouldn't be the same thing if you're not cultivating a culture and then in just a reality basically that people tap into. And that goes in basically with, like, aside from the taste that you have, where now like that taste directly is correlated with a memory, and that memory, that's a different type of thing. That, like, a taste palate is an instant gratification type of thing, but a memory is something that's malleable, that you can keep moving basically.
Yeah, and when they've had a good time, the word of mouth on that good time goes way farther than the word of mouth on the beverage. The word of mouth on the beverage definitely helps.
Sure.
But people are dragging friends in here because, no, it's really fun. The place is really cool. Yeah, they got good beverages too. Like, it's different. It's new. You've never actually had this before. So it's understanding what business that you're in here. And I think it's evolving for the beverage business. I think more and more businesses are starting to realize this. And I didn't invent this. The chief economist for the Brewers Association actually outright said this at a meeting I was at last year. Said, just get it out of your mind that you guys are in the booze business. Yes, you make beverage alcohol, but you're in the entertainment business.
I love that.
It's an activity for people.
Wow.
And you got to remember that. So
This is a place to be.
yeah, it's part of them having a weekly schedule of activities for fun for themselves. That's how people see it.
Cool.
It's not just booze.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for having us at
this
your
is fantastic.
meadery, and it won't be the last time that you see us for sure.
Yeah,
Next
we'll be
time
in
I'll be hanging out. Well, I'm hanging out right now.
Thank you for having us on the show.
This has been awesome
pleasure.
AF.
Awesome.
Derivations on the hashtag.
Tomorrow, waking up from work.com. like AF, you know,
Yep.
like, whoa, what happened?
What was it last weekend? Be prepared AF and come get your growler
Be
fills
prepared
before
AF for the
storm.
snowstorm.
It's just everywhere.
That's brilliant. I like
Awesome.
that.
So thank you guys so much for listening. This is episode 13 of the Waking Up From Work podcast. You can check us out, see some show notes and some things that these guys reference at wakingupfromwork.com. You can see us on the Facebooks at Waking Up From Work, or Instagram at Dave Wake Up, or
Instagram.
Twitter at Dave Wake Up, which I totally don't use Twitter, but I have it. I don't know why. Thank you guys
Similar
for
to us.
listening. Keep hustling.
Thank you.
Cheers, guys. Thanks.
That was awesome, guys.
Another one in the books.
Thanks. We had fun. That was fun.
Thanks.
Yeah, I told you.